person or persons is still alive.
And our reporters, our assignment editors, everyone in the newsroom, our producers are working to figure out what is happening, how this fire started after this scene. If you're just tuning in to CBS Philadelphia, a call came in at 3:45 this afternoon that there was a large amount of shots fired. Multiple people had been shot. We do know that 2 officers have been transported to area hospitals. Penn Presbyterian, Mercy Fitzgerald, that is a level 1 trauma center. We may be getting an update on that as well. And no Mercy, all Presby. We are also told that there was an additional victim. We're waiting to hear more on their condition. We've been told that the officers are expected to be okay, which is great news. They're in stable condition.
That's good.
What went down, what the current situation is with the shooter, the suspect, is still unclear. We're working to get that information as well. As
you can see, ground zero, the house is still burning, but on the left side of your screen, the water cannons have basically put out the fire, it looks like, on the house there on the left, which is good news because the flames just took over that home maybe about 5-10 minutes ago, and it was burning quite a bit, but it seems like they have concentrated on that house right now, so that won't continue. You can see a little bit of the flames right now, but they are concentrating on that house with their water cannons.
You know, additionally, so many crews have mobilized, and I'd love to get Joe Holden back on the phone if he is standing by. Producers, if you can try to reach out to him, that would be great, because Joe has the most updated information as far as what's coming from the officers, why the chopper is being told to remain so far back from this area, and what is being confirmed at this point about that 3rd victim, and could there potentially be more? Joe, are you with us?
Yes, Yuki, yes, I am with you. How about a reset? How about let's talk about what brought us here at this moment. It's now 4:39. This is almost closing in on an hour since calls to 911 went out reporting people hearing a volley of shots fired in their neighborhood. We don't know where that 911 call came from, but we know that it drew a law enforcement response. In the time since, 2 police officers, if you've mentioned, an officer from East Lansdowne, a second officer from Lansdowne, both boroughs right there in the eastern part of Delaware County, both sustaining gunshot wounds, and a 3rd victim described to be a child. There is some back and forth with my sources on the child's age. There's no point in putting out an arbitrary number at this time. I just am not seeing agreement on an age, so we're going to hold off on that. No information on that child's condition. But fast forward the hands of time 50 minutes later, and here we continue to watch this home in a complete fireball with black smoke rising hundreds of feet into the air, visible from all points of West Philadelphia and the suburbs. The fire burning out of control because the firefighters have not been able to really get into position because of the level of danger that police have said exists within this house. Up until the last 5 minutes, my sources were still telling me they were treating this as a barricade situation, but they said it wouldn't be for too much longer because clearly you cannot sustain existence in a structure that is on fire to that degree. You see what appears to be a firefight that is growing a little bit more consistent with what we would expect a fire of this magnitude to be burning. But
and Joe, it looks like they're starting to concentrate on the house that is burning right now, with the cannons now pointed toward that home. So that could be a difference maker in this whole process right now.
And I don't ever want to say that my sources have gone dark, but I will say that in the last 5 minutes, I'm not getting information back, which is suggestive of some developments on the ground. I'm also looking at people walking around. I don't see them covered in as much as we saw earlier, huddled behind a SWAT vehicle, literally walking with the tank. I don't see any of that right now. I also did see, as they were trying to prevent a full-on exposure of fire to that other neighboring home, that officers were in the back. It appeared to be a mix of firefighters and SWAT officers trying to access that home. So is this appearing to be a level of, are they thinking things are, or are things under control? We are certainly working hard to get that answer.
Joe, let me ask you this, because you're very familiar. You know, there's only so much information that we can get as an investigation is unfolding, right? In this situation, when people are at home and they're watching and there's some concern that whoever may be behind this, right, whoever this suspect may be, is there concern that that person could be watching news coverage, that police have to be very wary about what they say regarding location? How does that work?
Always. So first off, this is the same information that we're taking and trying to understand and process, that a potential suspect could also be doing the same. We're very aware that we don't want to be giving or extending any courtesies or upper hand to someone who may be behind why we are all tuned in right now. And the flow of information usually begins in a typical fashion with information on the officers, who they are, who do they work for, they were shot, what's their condition. There's a command post where tactical information then begins to flow from. That includes a mix of SWAT commanders, local police, chiefs, fire, the county, 911, sheriff's department, all of these folks. And I'll tell you what the chopper is seeing, and my screen is on a slight delay, but that white smoke, it might be just a slight silver lining, but that is usually consistent with when a fire has really undergone a significant amount of water. I'm also speaking with the spokesperson for the William Penn School District. Jessica, to your question about students, their safety, after-school activities, they're just waiting to hear information from law enforcement. So I'm trying to coordinate with them as well, not only law enforcement, but the community there, and taking into consideration just the way of life here that's been put on a dramatic pause as this house fire continues, and there are at least 3 people wounded from gunfire.
And I'm counting, Joe, maybe at least 2, 3, maybe 4 water cannons on that house right now. They are concentrating on that house, and a lot of smoke can be seen from great distances. Smoke from that fire is actually on our radar, and I'm told it's drifting over West Philadelphia through Delco. If we can bring up Bill Kelly's mic, but Bill, you can tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so the way the radar works is it sweeps around, it picks up stuff in the atmosphere. Typically we're looking at rain, or snow. And in this case, what you're looking at is the smoke that it is indicating. Now those winds are not very strong out there. We looked around, they're anywhere between about 3 to 6 miles per hour. So a lot of that smoke is going up and then just kind of drifting along. And the winds are generally moving in out of the northwest. And I just looked, that particular smoke plume that the radar's picking up now is all the way down over PHL, essentially. So it really is moving over 95. We have our network of cameras right now. They're kind of scanning around to see. We have our library camera, our camera in Philadelphia. And Ron, let me know if they've come up with anything to see if we can actually see that from some of our different vantage points there. But yeah, that smoke is going to continue to drift. Obviously, it's a tremendous amount of stuff that's in the atmosphere, and that's what you're seeing on the radar because there's nothing else out there. So that's the smoke.
Bill, thank you so much for that perspective. If you are just tuning in right now, it is 4:46. This call came in at 3:45. So we have been over this scene for about an hour. You are looking live now from Chopper 3. This house has been burning for the last hour. Calls came in that multiple shots had been fired, and there were a large amount of shots fired. Multiple people had been shot. We do know that 2 police officers, one from Lansdowne, one from East Lansdowne, have been taken to Penn Presbyterian Hospital to be treated. Yes, they are going to be okay. We also know of a 3rd victim. We are working to confirm that victim's age. As for whether the suspect was in the home, whether we were told this was a barricade situation, our crews inside our newsroom are working to get all of that information to you and bring it to you as soon as possible.
And they took quite a while to actually put the water cannons on this house right now. They were standing around, watching it. They had a plan. Now the plan has come to this. They are finally starting to put that fire out. Could that mean something? Joe says he doesn't like to say his sources went dark, but obviously something is going on and hopefully coming to a conclusion, but it is still a very, very active situation as they still try to douse those flames. And
they are now actively getting that house that you see right there that is right next door to the home that's burning. We are also working to figure out, is this a single family dwelling? Is this a duplex? How many people live in that area? To give you some perspective of where we are talking about, you want to give that exact address, the 5800 block of Lewis Avenue, right near Pembroke in Lansdowne. We know there was a school in that area. We're working to find out what's happening with after-school activities, but that school let out at 3:30 minutes before these calls came in to 911 from this situation. So parents in that area trying to pick their students up. We also saw our Kim Hudson, who was on the ground. There were kids riding bikes in the area. Sure. No doubt the scene is very smoky. And if you are just tuning in, the reason why this fire looks as though it's burning out of control and is so large is because fire crews have not been allowed to get close to that scene for their own safety until just moments ago.
Over the last 45 minutes to an hour, watching that house crumble in pieces as those pieces fall to the ground and the officers stand by to wait to make their move. It took a while, once again, for those water cannons to get in place, but that was all part of the plan, no doubt. That was all part of the plan. Maybe even trying to smoke whoever was in there out. Whether that worked or not remains to be seen. We still have to wait and find out.
I'd love to get back to Carrie Corrado, guys, if it's possible to get out there. I'd love to know what the scene is like at Penn Presbyterian Hospital. That is where we are told the officers had been transported. That is a level 1 trauma center. Carrie, if you can hear me, it looks as though there are several police officers on that scene.
Jessica, I can tell you it's very tense. We're here at Penn Presbyterian Hospital. This is where we are told the 2 officers were taken. We're standing across the street, so we're using our camera to kind of zoom in and see everything. There is a heavy police presence here. Everywhere you look, there's a police cruiser. Now, Penn Police have the road outside of the hospital blocked off. Philly police officers are here too, along with Upper Darby, Haverford Township Police, just to name a few. We are seeing support from all over. We can also see a lot of officers waiting outside the front door. When it comes to the 2 officers who were shot, we are told that one officer is from Lansdowne, the other officer is from East Lansdowne, and we are told, we did just learn that they are in stable condition and they are doing okay. So this is the very latest from the hospital. We are told the Delaware County District Attorney is headed to the hospital. We're also told that the police chiefs for both departments are headed here as well. We are expecting an update. We are told they will come out and give us an update shortly. So a lot of moving parts, a lot going on here, but we'll keep you posted once we hear from the police chiefs.
Carrie, thank you so much.
Thank you, Carrie.
If possible, if we can get our Joe Holden back on the phone. Joe, you have covered so many of these situations, and again, you work very closely as chief investigative reporter with our police in the area. When an officer is involved in a shooting, and we know that an officer is the victim of a gunshot, how is this investigation or the situation at the hospital treated differently?
So right now, with the district attorney en route to the hospital, there are certain, let's just say, FOP provisions in their contracts. They work in a certain way where a statement may not be able to be offered for some time. Usually if you're wounded, that is a different scenario. But there are some important particulars that unfold with how any officer who is part of this investigation, whether wounded or in another sort of light, how they become part of the larger matter going forward. The district attorney will likely try to have a conversation to make sure that the officers are okay. Are they awake? Are they talking? Are they in surgery? What is happening inside the emergency room that, certainly at the moment, this is an emergency, the whole thing. Everything is in flux, and it's a terrible situation. And so Jack Stolzheimer, en route to Penn Presbyterian Hospital, is also being pressed for information by probably everybody in our newsroom, including me. What is the latest? What do you know? What can we report from your end? The investigation then goes from there, starting from that 911 call at 3:45. Somebody heard gunshots. Did a 911 call originate from this house on Lewis Avenue that's burning? Right. My sources tell me the target of their investigation, so the would-be shooter who shot 2 officers and a child, according to my police sources and information we've since confirmed, last known information was that shooter was still in that house. So that information, and coupled with, I'm still working to find out where this child who was shot, where they may be. We're piecing it together, but we want to do so in a very careful and responsible way.
And once again, Joe, we don't know how it all started. They could have been coming to serve a warrant, and it could have been anything. All we know right now, it's an active shooter situation and still being called that until we hear otherwise, correct?
Correct, absolutely. My source is saying that the target of their investigation, the shooter, still in that location. You have to look at those photos, though. The aerials coming from Chopper 3. That doesn't look survivable to me.
Mm-mm.
And the walls of that home, I mean, it looks like there's some give and take on the left side of the home. That this is an unsustainable situation. It looks like it's on the first floor now. So we'll wait and see. There's a car on fire. The next door home sustained some fire damage. Not sure what the situation with the fire there is, but this is quite an alarming scenario. We did see a fire engine finally able to come down the street as they are now putting more water on this burning house.
And Joe, that could have been part of their game plan, just to let it burn, to see if anyone's in there, for them to come out or for them to perish.
Yeah, quite a dramatic situation unfolding as we're walking the viewers through this, as we're getting information. It's all a process, and as we're processing this, we are judging where our sources are and our relationships, the source information, to kind of peel back the layer of how journalism works. Source information is just like any other relationship. It's built on trust. And we want to make sure that what we're passing along to our viewers is as sacred as we can get it to be.
Sure, especially when victims and involving our police officers.
No doubt.
Joe, let me ask you this too. You sent me an interesting photo showing how far our chopper is being told to stay back from the scene. And it looks from our vantage point, looking at our monitor here in the studio, it looks as though they're so close, but they are using a very long lens to capture this footage. What can you tell us and tell our viewers at home as to why it is so important that they stay out of the way of police helicopters or anyone who's trying to get information to the crews on the ground?
So the choppers and choppers of other TV stations are all doing what is like a centric rotation around this scene, and they are back a considerable distance. Right now, I'm looking at our flight tracker, and our chopper is about northeast of the location, flying at an altitude of 1,800 feet and climbing. And so they're in this particular pattern or formation so that they're not interfering with operations on the ground, not giving any information to someone who may be watching who is involved in trying to elude or get away from the police. And we are in regular contact. Our assignment desk will hear from 911 or the district attorney's office if they believe we're, in a way, in unbalancing the situation where we're taking it and possibly putting somebody in danger. That's not our goal. Our goal is to give information. And to the question about the chopper, as I'm watching it right now, they're at 1,900 feet.
Wow. And
that is also because of other, police choppers in the area. It would not be unusual for Philadelphia police to lend TAC 1, which is the name of their helicopter that provides aerial support. So there are numerous things in play as to why, when a situation like this is covered, why we're not only sensitive, we're working with so many different layers of sources and information and 911 to make sure that we're not interfering.
Joe, when it comes to information about the neighborhood, have you gathered any information about evacuations in that area? Because the source has reached out to me and said the house that was burning right next door, they did have to take people out of there as soon as they could. Some of those people, they left. Whoever was in that house has been taken out. But have you gotten any word about any evacuations?
I haven't, and that's a great question, and it's an important point to note. This must have unfolded in a dramatically fast fashion. I say that because it's my sources' information suggesting that the way that officers flooded this area, it was already too dangerous to make a run for it out of homes. People likely had to hunker down given how dangerous the unfolding series of events, including the gunfire, the officers wounded, third person wounded who we are told is a child, and then the fire. So it's how do things line up? We are trying to figure that out. And in deference to the law enforcement agencies such as Lansdowne and East Lansdowne, both with an officer now off duty and suffering from a gunshot wound, at least one that we know of, their chiefs are they're not big departments.
Sure.
They're not departments.
Sure.
We're not interacting with them on a daily basis like the Philadelphia Police Department. So we're waiting. They're probably looking at a very fine step of communication with what the district attorney's office might want to put out. It will likely all flow from Penn Presbyterian Hospital once Jack Stolzheimer is ready to speak.
And Joe, we're going to check back with you in just a little bit as we look at white smoke coming from the house that has been burning. Some more former firefighter friends of mine always used to remind me, when you start to see the white smoke, that means they are slowly getting a handle. It's not black any longer. They're slowly getting a handle on this fire. So once again, this could possibly be coming to some sort of conclusion. Where it leads, we do not know. But it is just about 5 o'clock, and you are watching live coverage. Live coverage. 2 officers have been shot. A house fire in East Lansdowne, Delaware County. It all broke out at around 3:45 this afternoon. You're watching CBS News Philadelphia. And breaking right now on CBS News Philadelphia, an active shooter situation playing out in East Lansdowne, Delaware County. At least 2 police officers have been shot in all this chaos.
At the top of the hour, let's recap this situation for you. This all started at 3:45. You are looking live. This is the area right around Lewis Avenue, just off of Baltimore Avenue, right near the Fernwood Cemetery near Lansdowne. We are able to confirm that 2 police officers have been shot, one from Lansdowne, one from East Lansdowne. They have both been taken to the Level 1 Trauma Center at Penn Presbyterian Hospital. The good news, our sources in the newsroom have learned that both are expected to be okay. Firefighters are able to be on the scene now. They had been told to stay away for their own safety to knock down that fire. It's still unclear. We are working to figure out how this fire started and how this entire situation unfolded.
We've got some information now from the Delco DA, and when it comes to the 2 officers who were shot during this chaos, we're told once again they are in stable condition and appear to be okay, but one was shot in the leg, the other was shot in the arm. And CBS Philadelphia reporter Kim Hudson is at the scene right now to give us more information on what's going on right now. Kim?
Mo, Yuki, chaos is not even the word to describe what's going on right now. I'll step out of the way. Right now we are on Penn Boulevard near Baltimore Avenue, and now the middle of this street has been shut down. Clifton Fire Department as well as Lansdowne Fire Department, they asked neighbors to move out of the street so that they could back 2 fire engines, or 1 fire engine, but there's another one standing by. But they backed one into an alley between 2 houses here. They used a saw to cut down the fence that is between this block and the block where the first house burned, and then that fire had spread to the second house. Earlier, we just saw drama unfold as officers and sheriff's deputies, they were doing everything that they could to kick in a door to the second house to make sure that they could get inside. Also, right now, we have officers. They are also going up the street as well. They are kind of jogging. We're not exactly sure why. We're not exactly sure where they're going, but we do know that now now, officers have been called in to move neighbors out of the street so that they can get a little closer to this fire to try to fight it. They are pulling lines, they're pulling hoses right now, and they are moving toward the houses that are on fire right now. Again, this is a neighborhood that residents have described as quiet. They say families live here. There are lots of children out here. This is a diverse neighborhood. They say that everyone gets along here. It's very quiet. And they say it is just tragic that something like this could happen here. If you live in this area, I strongly recommend, because traffic is a nightmare right now, that you wait a little while before you come home, because several streets are blocked off in the area. Back to you.
Kim, just out of curiosity, of the neighbors that you have talked to, you talked to two earlier, and I'm sure there's some still out on the street very curious. Has anyone even given any inkling about who may have lived in this home?
I specifically asked two sets of neighbors if they knew who lived in the home, and they said that they did not. So definitely the neighborhood is, everyone's getting along here, everybody's close-knit, they're talking to each other, but they have not been able to tell me exactly who lived in that house.
It was a single-family home, 3 bedrooms. Again, the house next door, very close. Firefighters were able to knock those flames down in time to make sure that everyone at the house next door was safe. Also, Kim, thank you for your coverage.
Thank you,
3:30 is when Lansdowne Elementary School gets out. This call came in right around 3:45 today, right as kids were getting out. Parents were picking them up. Students had after-school activities planned, so quite a scene for them.
There's Jack Stolzheimer right now on the scene, getting as much information as he can. I'm sure he will be passing that on to us as soon as he gets it. But you can see he's walking with quite a bit of pace right now, so it appears that he may have some information. We'll stand by for that. But in the meantime, our live breaking coverage continues. I believe we want to check in with CBS News Philadelphia reporter Carrie Corrado. She's at Penn Presby. Carrie?
Yuki, that's right. We did learn that the officers are okay. At first here at Penn Presbyterian Hospital, it was very tense, but we are feeling that sense of relief knowing the officers are recovering. So we are standing right across the street. And in the last 10 minutes, the police chiefs for the injured officers just arrived at the hospital. There is a heavy police presence here. Everywhere you look, there is a police cruiser. Penn police have the road outside the hospital blocked off. Philly police officers are here too, along with Upper Darby and Haverford Township Police. We are seeing support from all over. We can also see a lot of officers waiting outside the front door. So when it comes to the 2 officers that were shot, we are told one officer is from Lansdowne, the other officer is from East Lansdowne. We learned they are in stable condition. So that's the very latest from the hospital. We are told the Delaware County District Attorney is headed to the hospital too. We are told we will get an update shortly from officials. So this is all developing. There's a lot of moving parts here at Penn Presbyterian Hospital. Again, we are told those 2 officers are recovering inside, and we are awaiting an update. I'll send it back to you.
That's good news. Okay, Carrie, you stand by. We will get back to you.
All right, we're going to go now to Chief Investigative Reporter Joe Holden, who has been on this scene from the beginning. Joe, what can you tell us about the very latest situation, especially for those who are just getting home and just tuning into our coverage? And also, what do we know that is confirmed about that 3rd victim?
Yeah, so if you're watching, if you're just tuning in, if you've been with us, we are going through all of the jumping through hoops here and making sure we've reached out to everybody and anybody who may have some information for us concerning this situation. I'm texting now the head of the county's 911 system to figure out, to pinpoint exactly what was the nature of that first phone call that went into 911. Was it that someone heard shots, or did it originate from inside the house? I'm beginning to get some information that prompted me to reach out to try to make some head or tail of that detail. It's an important one because it would then describe, were officers already there, or did something happen that the 911 called through initial responding officers? East Lansdowne and Lansdowne are near, there's such small communities, it's not unusual for both departments to call. Can I continue?
Yes, please do. There was a shot from Chopper. Go ahead, Joe.
Indeed. So, and then this element of the fire after the officers were shot and the 3rd victim also shot. I have to tell you, I'm having a hard time pinning down the age of that gunshot victim. Also, the person was characterized to be a child. We do not know the location of that child. There were only 2 transports from that scene, according to my sources.
Sure.
So we are working hard to figure that out. And I have to tell you, the sources are getting back to me with some information, but there are no answers when it comes to the 3rd gunshot victim described to be a child.
Joe, what can you tell? We've certainly covered enough of these situations. Now that most of that home has burned out, when it goes to investigating how this scene unfolded, so much of that evidence, right? Knobs, switches, any tools inside that would help them determine exactly how this all played out have now burned. So how difficult is this going to be for investigators to figure out what exactly went down here?
Well, and of course, first, you'd have to think that the officers who were shot were here pretty fast. Do they have body cameras on them? And has that video been downloaded yet? While what was physically available in what was standing in that home just an hour ago, clearly gone, there's other ways to acquire evidence. Ring doorbell cameras, possibly across the street or next door. They're good for not only visuals, but they also have audio, also other surveillance systems, perhaps some older technology. I've worked that neighborhood. I've been there for other incidents. I'll tell you, not only do police go searching for video, so do TV reporters to try to get a handle and the best angle on what happened. So there is certainly preserved evidence. It's just not going to be right at the center of where this presumably all started. And the biggest question for me right now is, where is this shooter?
Right.
Last contact I had with sources, Jess and Yuki, was that the shooter was still characterized to be a barricade situation. So the house had been surrounded. Conclusions can be made. However, without the benefit of sources telling us, we'll hold off on reporting. But clearly, this fire has burned this 2-story with an attic structure right to the ground, or as close to it as possible, as it's going to be, as the fire department has been fighting it with water. There's now this interdepartment, really some red tape with releasing information, because the district attorney is at the hospital. He's getting information. They're all probably, most likely, going to do this in unison.
And Joe, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, Yuki, there are not going to be multiple press conferences about the same thing. We'll probably hear directly from District Attorney Jack Stolzheimer when he has a handle on what's happened, and it'll go from there. I would also imagine, and I'm waiting to hear back on confirmation, this is also, it looks to be a job for possibly the ATF, and that this also would be some federal engagement in the investigation as well.
You mentioned Jack Stolzheimer, the DA. We saw a shot of him live not long ago. You're looking at tape right now. This happened earlier. I believe that fire is almost under control. They still have a ways to go, but we saw Stolzheimer, the DA, walking rather quickly during a live picture not long ago, so hopefully he will pass on some information to this situation that is unfolding today. Once again, an active shooter situation in Delco this afternoon. 2 police officers were shot, one in the arm and the leg. They are both at the hospital and expected to be okay. They are in stable condition. So we continue to follow the story live for you here on CBS News Philadelphia.
How this fire started, Joe has been working to confirm. Our crews in the newsroom have been working to confirm. Again, we just want to reiterate, this was shot earlier from Chopper 3 as they used a very long lens to capture this video because the scene was so active. It was unclear exactly what was going to happen, and we needed to protect them for their safety. We have crews who are on the ground. Yuki, I can fairly say, and I'm guessing you're in the same situation, in all the news or all the breaking news situations that we have covered, I have never seen where crews have not been allowed near the scene for their own safety. That is why this fire had to basically burn throughout this entire situation, because it was unsafe for those fire crews to get near the scene.
And once again, it could have been part of the game plan for the authorities to let it burn. Let it burn to force whoever they are searching for out of that dwelling. Whether that happened or not, we still don't know. Whether that person or persons perished in that house fire that you're looking at right now. Once again, this is tape from earlier. Most of this has been knocked down right now, but we don't know. A lot of questions to be answered, and that's going to be coming out, I'm sure, throughout the evening.
And to give you all some perspective of what is happening right now with our crews on the ground and in our newsroom right now, we are actively making calls. We're trying to get you the most up-to-date information. We don't want to report anything that is not confirmed at this point. We're also doing this for the safety of the neighbors. There's also concern that the suspect may be listening to local news coverage. So before we get any information out to the public, we need to make sure that we have run it through police and everything is in fact correct.
Let's get some information from the hospital right now. Carrie Corrado standing by with that. Carrie?
We actually just got an update. We are told that the DA is about 15 minutes away. He will head into the hospital, get briefed, and then we are told after that we will get an update about how the officers are doing and a little bit more information. So we are awaiting for that. In the meantime, we are here at Penn Presbyterian Hospital. This is where those 2 officers were taken. Again, they are recovering in that hospital. In the beginning, it was very tense, but a sense of relief now knowing those officers are okay. But to give you an idea, in the last 10 minutes, even the police chiefs for the injured officers just arrived to the hospital. So there's a heavy police presence here. Everywhere you look, there is a police cruiser. Penn police have the road outside the hospital blocked off. Philly police officers are here along with Upper Darby, Haverford Township Police. So we're seeing a lot of support from all over. Now, we can also see a lot of officers waiting by the front door. It's a little bit hard to see from our vantage point, but we could see a lot of officers waiting outside as well. Now, when it comes to those 2 officers who were shot, we are told one officer is from Lansdowne, the other officer is from East Lansdowne, and we did learn they are in stable condition. So that's the very latest from the hospital. Again, like I mentioned earlier, we are told the Delaware County District Attorney is headed to the hospital where we will get an update shortly. We are told he is about 15 minutes away. We'll head into the hospital, get briefed, and then come out here and speak to us. But a lot of moving parts, and we'll keep you updated once we hear from him. Yuki, I'll send it back to you.
Carrie, let me ask you this too. You mentioned that there is a heavy police presence. Are they letting people go into the hospital? Are they diverting emergencies to other nearby hospitals? What's the situation there?
The road behind me is blocked off right outside of the hospital. It's very secure. They're only letting certain vehicles in. So right now we can only see a lot of police officers and cruisers outside of the hospital. No word on where the other emergencies are headed, but it seems like they have it pretty under control now. And again, a sense of relief after learning those officers are okay.
Thank you, Carrie. Definitely was all hands on deck today. The brotherhood and sisterhood of law enforcement came out to Delco to try to put this situation to an end. It could be coming to an end right now. We don't know. You still see officers on the scene, but once again, this is tape from earlier, but we did see smoke that was turning white and that fire started to go down even more. So hopefully a conclusion will be coming soon. But right now, let's get the very latest information from our Joe Holden, who's standing by once again on the phone. Once again, you're looking at tape here earlier this afternoon.
So, Yuki, obviously evolving from about 3:45 this afternoon, we are going through dispatch logs and asking sources and asking for police to confirm what it is we're reading. We're beginning to see how this unfolded. And while we now know that 2 officers were shot in the line of duty, their injuries described to be non-life-threatening, a 3rd person also shot, still working to pin down those details. It seems those gunshots were sustained, and then this fire happens within a window of 10 minutes after the first calls for help were made from this location on Lewis Avenue in East Lansdowne. We know that officers from all across Delaware County raced to the scene to lend support. We also know that there was a clear and present danger on that very densely populated street, preventing the fire department from going and fighting what became a major 2-alarm fire, according to Delaware County 911 dispatch logs. Fire crews were positioning as far away as Baltimore Avenue, which is about a block and a half away from the house in question. And we know since then, officers taken to the hospital, prosecutors now mobilizing to begin their investigation with interviews and well wishes. Let's not forget the human aspect of this. The district attorney is going to walk into the ER and look at one of the officers who he's most likely familiar with and say, "I'm glad you're okay," perhaps. But that there is a human angle to all of this as well. Lots of lives are disrupted. You heard in Kim Hudson's report, there are some neighbors who are sounding frustrated. They want to know what's going on, what is happening, why is our neighborhood basically now a militarized zone with police and firefighters. We watched a house for about an hour literally disintegrate, burn to the ground. After the fire department was able to get in, it was too late. It appears they were able to save the neighboring house from where fire was beginning to burn in the eaves of that structure. And then there was a car off to the side of the home also on fire. It's a two-story home with an attic. It is unknown where the shooter may have been in that home, but we saw some very tense formation. Police walking with a SWAT vehicle and also in formation with their weapons at their sides. And one thing we will note is after the initial reports of gunfire, which we are tracing back to a 911 call around 3:45, there were no further reports of any gunfire either coming from officers or coming from the house.
Interesting.
So, no exchange of gunfire since the very early stages of this emergency. And we also are aware of no heard over a loudspeaker commands from police, give yourself up, surrender. There was none of that. So police sources, they have sort of pulled back in chatting with me. Clearly the investigation is in earnest, but the last confirmed information from multiple sources, this was still being treated as a barricade situation, even though now that house is clearly leveled.
Joe, I had asked Carrie if we knew anything about the situation at the ER, that because they're not letting traffic in, if emergency calls are being diverted to other locations and you know, any patient that needs emergency services is not being transported to another hospital. She said all of this they're waiting to hear from Stolzheimer, from the DA, because they can't release any of this information right now. That's pretty much standard or par for the course here.
It is par for the course, and I know from years of working with Philly 911, and I started on the assignment desk many years ago, that there's a simple divert. If they can't get traffic easily into one, it's a matter of just a different direction. You have Jefferson in Center City, you have Temple in North Philadelphia, even for Delaware County, Crozer-Chester Hospital is also a trauma center. So there are options. There's, Lankenau, right in Lower Merion Township. So all of these hospitals can bear the weight of traffic, of volume, of calls for people who need help. Fortunately, we live in a city where it's not just a place like Penn Presbyterian that would accept serious emergency cases of a level 1 trauma need.
Sure.
Joe, we thank you. We thank you. We're going to get back to you in just a little bit. But once again, an active shooter situation, a house fire, 2 officers shot. They are stable. Tension, chaos has brought a small community to a standstill. Let's get more in the community right now. And the neighborhood, I believe our Kim Hudson is standing by with the very latest from that area of Delco. Kim?
Yuki, we are still here on Penn Boulevard near Baltimore Avenue. We still have firefighters here in this alley. They are very near the house that's burning on Lewis. Again, we have a lot of family and friends out here, neighbors who are here trying to figure out what is going on. They're talking amongst themselves about what they have seen, and then also just bouncing back and forth questions. They're very concerned about that initial report of a child, but CBS News Philadelphia videographer Casey Kuhn, he actually saw Delaware County District Attorney Jack Stolzheimer walking earlier, and he got some video. We're working on sending that in right now, where he asked him about that child, and Jack Stolzheimer said that he has not heard any other confirmed reports of a child being involved, that came in initially, but they are still trying to chase down exactly where that report came from. But so is everyone here. Everyone is very concerned about anybody who might have been in that house. fires. A lot of people were frustrated, not understanding why it is this fire was not put out sooner. They just did not understand that police were trying to make sure that the scene was safe for firefighters before they could move in. However, that understanding seems to be moving kind of like a wave down Penn Boulevard here as everyone is starting to calm down. I think everyone is just relieved that firefighters are finally on the scene. I think that they are understanding that the scene, at least at this point, seems to be a little safer for the community. I was speaking with a neighbor earlier, and she said it is a shame that this is happening here because it's normally a quiet neighborhood. She said nothing like that happens here. And she is concerned about the impact to the families, especially all the children who are here watching this happen. There are helicopters overhead. There are 2 houses that are still being extinguished right now. Streets are still blocked off. A lot of houses here. So, and it's rush hour. It's time to go home. If you are not here at home here on Pembroke Boulevard, Lewis, Baltimore Avenue, if you're not home yet, if you have not left work yet, give it a little while because, again, traffic is a mess here. No one is being allowed to drive up or down Penn Boulevard. There were even some people trying to leave and to turn onto Baltimore Avenue earlier. They were stopped. There's police caution tape. It is being strung around parked cars here. No one is being allowed to enter or leave, not by vehicle at all. Also, as you guys can see, we have a huge police presence going all the way up the street. We have an ambulance on standby here. We have police officers here. Clifton Heights Fire as well as Lansdowne Fire, they are both here. We have a lot of people just wondering again, what is going on? So again, we will do everything we can here at CBS News Philadelphia to get the latest information and pass it on to you as it becomes available.
And
back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much for that. And we backed up what the DA said, what you said, DA Stolzheimer said when it came to the possibility of a young person being shot. A 911 call of a report of a child being shot. There was a call. There's no evidence, though. There's no evidence that a child has been shot at this point. What we do know is 2 police officers were shot immediately after going to that house, after that 911 call. So I'm sure DA Stolzheimer will continue to talk about this situation once he holds his news conference. And
of course, that call came in at 3:45. The call to 911 reported a large amount of shots fired and that multiple people had been shot. So again, we're still trying to confirm the latest with the suspect or suspects. Our crews in the newsroom, the reporters, photographers, producers, everyone is trying to get you the most accurate information possible. If you are just tuning in right now, you see that smoke billowing. That fire was burning out of control in this home because fire crews were not allowed to get near that scene because it was, as Joe had confirmed, an active barricade situation. As of now, that barricade situation has not been called off. We are still waiting to hear what is going on inside of that home. Who was inside the home when it started to burn? Was the suspect in there? Could there have been additional officers in there? We are trying to get you all of this information. Kim said there are so many questions. We have questions here inside the CBS Philadelphia newsroom. You're looking live at Presbyterian Hospital, where, as you see, there is a very heavy police presence. And now we're looking at a shot of the home. Yuki, we watched that house collapse. This was a single family home, a 3-bedroom home right next door to a duplex, which also firefighters had to watch that very closely to make sure that that fire did not spread.
No, I am not sure what we are watching on the left side of your screen, but in situations like this in the past, the families are notified. I'm not sure if those are family members or not, but once again, if they are, when it comes to the 2 officers, once again, they are going to be okay. One was shot in the arm, one was shot in the leg, so this very well could be. I am not sure, but we will definitely find out when we get a report from Presby once again, but it looks to me like it very well could be.
We are going to go back to Carrie Corrado. Carrie, we are watching that shot of those 2 women walking into Presby. Any idea who they might be or how they are related to this case?
Hi, Jessica. We believe that may be family members of one of the two officers who are recovering inside the hospital. Again, we did learn those officers are okay. So in the beginning, when we just got here, it was very tense, but a lot of relief knowing they are recovering and they are doing okay. We are here at Penn Presbyterian Hospital. Again, this is where the officers were taken. In the last, I would say, about 20 minutes, the police chiefs for the injured officers, they arrived to the hospital. There's a heavy police presence here. Basically, everywhere you look, you'll see a police cruiser. Penn police have the road outside of the hospital blocked off, so it's very secure about who can get in and out of here. So we believe that car that just arrived was family members for one of the police officers. Also, when it comes to the two officers who were shot, we are told one officer is from Lansdowne, the other officer is from East Lansdowne. So we did learn they are in stable condition. So that's the very latest from the hospital. We're also told the Delaware County District Attorney is headed to the hospital, and we will get an update after he is briefed inside of the hospital. We are told he'll come out along with some other officials and give us an update about exactly what's going on. So this is developing. There's a lot of moving parts. We're trying to figure everything out right now, but overall very secure outside of this hospital, and we're basically waiting for more information for a press conference from the DA and other officials.
Thank you for that, Gary. I don't know if you could see a monitor, but we did see a shot, I believe it was live, of officers up against the wall at the hospital with their hands in their pocket, talking, smiling. With their body language tells me that, yes, those officers are going to be okay, but we'll definitely keep you updated on the situation there at Presby. Right now, let's get back to Joe Holden. Joe Holden's on the phone. Anything new, Joe?
Yuki, I'm watching the same shot that you are with the officers, and I really couldn't make out their shields and what they are local police, and they looked relaxed. My information right now from sources is that the district attorney is putting together exactly what he'll tell us. He's preparing his remarks, is basically the better way to say it. And that includes touching base with the investigators who are running the command center on Lewis Avenue in East Lansdowne. As Kim Hudson has been reporting, and it's just a good message, is that for anybody trying to get in that area, with what we know is happening behind the scenes, it's just not worth the frustration to try to get in there at that point. Her message on point with the amount of law enforcement personnel that remain in that area. Plus, given the information, sort of the information vacuum on the barricade and the state of that detail, it's still not been declared over. So we're waiting to hear that. And then lastly, we're talking about what remains of the home. And if police were saying it remains to be a barricade, then you can draw conclusions on the possible shooter and that person's whereabouts. I did ask some sources in the fire department, were there any reports of an explosion? Was this a sudden sort of how did this fire originate? There are no reports of explosions leading up to the first report of flames to 911. And I would have to imagine, because we're not seeing that call was probably made over police radio after the officers had responded. Because, again, from my review and talking to sources, it looks like this fire followed about 10 minutes from the first call on that there was trouble at 58 Lewis Avenue. I just got a message from a source asking about any information on the shooter. Nothing yet.
I was just going to ask you, what do we know? Do we know anything about the suspect, or what type of call came in?
The first calls appear to relate to the word of a gunshot victim. And this is all in the time frame of a few minutes before 3:45 and then following to 3:50 when there were first reports for the fire departments to begin to arrive for the reports of flames and smoke showing. How these things interact and relate to each other, we only have that timeline to help us. Who set the fire, who pulled the trigger, who shot at police, it will all remain to be addressed.
Yeah.
Joe, thank you so much for that. It's 5:30. 5:30, you're watching special live coverage of breaking news from Delaware County. 2 officers have been shot. They are expected to survive, one in the arm, one in the leg. A house fire ensued. We do not know a thing yet about a suspect or suspects, but definitely a chaotic situation in Delco this afternoon that started about 3:45.
And CBS Philadelphia has learned that there is a third victim. We are working to find out the condition of that victim, the age, how they are related to all of this. The shots that you were looking at were shot right around 3:45 when our coverage started. Actually, we should say a little bit later, because in that shot, the fire truck was moving into the scene. Our Chopper 3 had been over the scene for that hour. We were also waiting to see when fire trucks would be allowed to get close to that scene. For their own safety, they were being told to stay away from the area. Again, still considered a barricade situation. That situation has not been called off. We're waiting to hear from DA Jack Stolzheimer to update us on the latest information. Yuki, the two officers were taken to Penn Presbyterian Hospital, which is a level 1 trauma center. We also know that a level 1 trauma center means that they can handle adult and pediatric patients. So regardless of the age of the victim, again, we are still trying to get that information. They could have all been taken to Penn Presbyterian Hospital.
And Jen, Jess, you mentioned Jack Stolzheimer, the DA. We understand a news conference. He will be holding a news conference from the hospital, and we will bring that to you live when he steps to the microphone to fill you in, to fill us in, and to fill that community in. Right now, many people still in their homes wondering what has happened, why it has happened. So many questions, so many questions.
Speaking of questions, our Kim Hudson has been on the ground in the neighborhood. And Kim, you spoke with some witnesses in the area. In a couple of your shots, we've seen kids on their bicycles. This all unfolded as Lansdowne Elementary was being dismissed at 3:30. So residents, of course, shaken, and so many questions tonight, but not a lot of answers.
That's right. A lot of people were starting to go and pick up their kids from the bus stop around the time that this happened. We spoke with a woman who said that she heard that that someone was shooting. She said she did not witness the incident herself, but news of this incident spread very fast through this neighborhood. And so she said that she heard that someone said that there was shooting at a house nearby while she was on her way to pick up her child. And one of her neighbors said that this is a tragic situation, that this does not happen here, that this is a normally very quiet neighborhood. I did ask a couple of other neighbors if they knew anything about the people who lived in that home that burned. They said they did not. However, a lot of people were asking about initial reports of a child possibly being involved. But again, we are hearing from officials that that has not been confirmed, that they do not have any confirmation or any evidence that a child was actually involved in this. But still, that rumor alone has a lot of people just asking if everyone is okay right now. The crowds have definitely thinned out quite a bit here. But there are still people out here. They're taking video. They are still watching. They definitely are waiting for news to see if anyone has been able to come out of this alive. But one thing that they're not able to do, they're not able to drive up and down the street. They are not able to drive and go as they please here, because even the middle of the street has been cut off. Guys, back to you.
No doubt there's probably a residual effect, also a domino effect. People can't get in that neighborhood, which is blocking up other arteries. So it could be a while before things return to normal, if you can call it normal.
And we should give you at home some more perspective. Thank you so much to all of our crews on the ground and in the air. The photographers, the reporters have just been working tirelessly to bring the most factual information, as are our crews in the newsroom right now. The phones have been ringing off the hook. They are on our assignment desk. They are listening to the scanners. We cannot report any information that we do not verify first with police. That is for your safety. That is for the officers' safety. We also are unsure as to who else may be listening to any live local news coverage. Social media also plays a big part in this.
Huge.
Kim mentioned people are out there with their camera phones, right? And that information is then shared and rumors spread. We know this. So again, we want to bring you the most factual information. As soon as DA Stolzheimer starts speaking, we're going to take that live. We also want to go back to Chief Investigative Reporter Joe Holden has had some really unique perspective on all of this. Joe, can I ask you about the emotional toll that this takes on a department when one of their officers, in this situation, two of their officers have been shot?
So these are neighboring departments, and certainly their size leaves so much to just be concerned about the job. It's a dangerous job. Signing up to be a police officer is dangerous. And so the many interviews we've done over the years with those who have either sustained gunshots on Philadelphia streets, or their families who are left behind to speak for them, or law enforcement. There are so many different phases of the PTSD element and the entire mental health picture that can often sort of shape what happens in the days and the weeks and the months afterwards. The media attention, the leaving the hospital with all of your fellow officers saluting you for your service. There is so much to take in and to wrap your head around, and we stick with that. We stay for those updates. We keep coming and asking our questions for our viewers and our friends at home. I want to get off that for just a minute, Jess, because I just listened to an audio, some transcripts. The district attorney did make some brief remarks on his way into the hospital. Nothing formal, but one of our photographers was there and sent me some audio, and so many questions left to be answered. He doesn't have answers yet, so this might be the direction where we're headed. The most important thing that was asked was, what about the shooter? Where's the shooter? The district attorney responded he didn't know if the shooter remained inside the home and died. So, I mean, bluntly put, that's what the district attorney said, that is just still unanswered. We know nobody was seen as we had our chopper up for the longest time. Nobody was seen running from the home. It was secured very quickly. So the district attorney, perhaps lending his many years of prosecutorial experience, that the conclusion might be that the shooter remained inside that home.
And Joe, that was my initial thought when we were talking about a game plan for the police. They were letting it burn. They were standing around it, surrounding that home, trying to smoke someone out. But obviously, no one came out because body language did not indicate that someone was coming out. And that very well, we don't know for sure, but that very well could have happened.
Yuki, do you remember when we saw the SWAT vehicle parked very close to the porch or an interior porch of the home? I shared with Jessica what the home once looked like before all of this from Google Maps. And it was an enclosed porch, maybe like a three-season room. And it either looked like it either crashed into that part of the home, or that maybe a winch was attached to the home and it was able to pull apart part of the frame. And from that point, we know that police, it looked like they were on the offensive, that they were making an effort to get inside the home or to make some sort of engagement with the individual inside the home. Remember, we have no reports of exchanges of gunfire after those initial calls, which speaks very largely to the status of the shooter at this point. And the district attorney, with the new information that he's saying, we don't know if that shooter remained inside and died.
We also don't know if police fired shots at the shooter. There's so much that is unclear. And, you know, Joe, in this business, our job is to find the answers. And there's so much unknown at this point. We don't know if the suspect is male or female. We don't know if they knew the victim. We don't know if this was a robbery. We are still working to find all of this out. What do you anticipate the DA will, at this point, what is he doing? Kind of walk us through how he gathers his information.
And I was just speaking to our assistant news director. I know we are trying to turn around this audio that was captured by Casey Kewen, our photographer there at the scene. We heard earlier in our reporting that Jack Stolzheimer was seen walking very quickly, and yet he took a moment to stop and give a very brief analysis or statement of his understanding of what happened. Now, he's likely been on the phone, like we've been, all afternoon, trying to learn the sequence of events and who interacted with who and what got us here and where did we go next, right? It's life. And so the district attorney, consulting with chiefs on the scene and investigators, fire investigators, this is now a possible case. It could be a possible case of either arson. We don't know how this fire began just yet, but there is enough information with the audio that the district attorney provided us, and hopefully we can turn that around to give us a sort of an understanding of where he's coming from, suggesting that there are so many questions. Their questions are almost a mirror appearance of ours. It's trying to get through this equation and come out with the right answer.
And Joe, as night begins to fall on the Delaware Valley and tri-state area, we're looking live at pictures of a house that is probably maybe 1/3 of it is still standing, if that. The fire seems to be just about out because of the white smoke, and the firefighters have their flashlights out now as the search continues for whatever they are looking for, maybe a person, maybe more evidence, but the firefighters are definitely going through their process of bringing this all to a conclusion, the firefighters and the police officers, as night descends on the Delaware Valley.
And Joe, we're also watching from, I don't know if you can see this shot that we're looking at, but we're looking at firefighters who are on the home right next door. We watched live as that house caught on fire. Now, fortunately, Chief Meteorologist Bill Kelly, we may want to bring him back in here in a second, was talking about how the wind was shifting and they were seeing smoke all the way down at Philadelphia International Airport. Had this been a much different situation or a windier day, those homes right next to this scene could have caught, and there was nothing at that point that firefighters could do because they were being told to stay away from the area. Right
there where those firefighters are on the left side of your screen, that's where we saw the roof, the molding of the roof, the angle of the top roof was on fire, and they definitely concentrated on that and knocked that out.
All right, and Joe was telling us about the sound from the district attorney, Stolzheimer. We do have that audio. Let's take a listen.
Two officers were responding to an emergency call this afternoon, a 911 call about an 11-year-old possibly being shot at the property we're at right now. They responded and they immediately took gunfire from the house. Somebody shot at them. Two officers have been injured. My understanding is they are going to be okay. They're in stable condition, but we're saying our prayers for them right now. Everybody in Delaware County should be praying for these two officers who ran towards fire when everybody else can run away from it. As you can see right now, every agency in Delaware County is out here responding to the scene. The individual inside set fire to the house, and it's been burning for quite a while now. They are putting the fire under control, and then we're going to deal with whether or not the shooter is still alive inside the house. So it's still an active crime scene. There's a lot still going on out here. I'm heading over to the hospital to see these two officers and to offer them my prayers and my thanks for what they've done.
That was
Jack Stolzheimer, indeed. So we just got a piece of information there that the shooter set the house on fire. We were wondering if there was an explosion or something like that, but we do know now that the shooter set the house on fire.
And we talked about what that does for the investigation when all of that evidence has burned. Our Aziza Schuler is live now from the scene. Aziza, tell us where you are and what you're seeing from your vantage point.
Yeah, Jessica and Yuki, I'm on Baltimore Avenue and Lewis Avenue. It's about 800 feet from that home where this all took place. Now, if you want to look down the street, you can see there's still some officers and emergency personnel on the scene. That's Yaden Fire Department, but there were several local agencies that responded to this incident, including Sharon Hill, Darby, Upper Darby, Eddystone. So this was a multi-effort from several local agencies. Things have really calmed down at this point. This has been an active scene since about 3 p.m. And I want to show you some video that we took maybe at 4 o'clock. We were up on the balcony of a home on a neighboring street, maybe about 1 block over, and you can really see the detail of how intense that fire was. The home is burning intensely. You can see it's almost completely demolished. The flames were billowing up into the sky, and there were neighbors all standing around watching to see what was happening, one, but two, a lot of them were not able to get into their homes. This is a time when a lot of people were either getting off of work or picking their children up from school. We actually spoke to a woman who maybe about 15-20 minutes ago was finally able to leave the street. She had been dropping off groceries to a friend of hers when she heard gunshots ring out.
And then the next thing we heard, pop, 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 pop. No cops had got here. I seen when the cops first started running up with their guns out.
Now, did you?
I said, girl, leave them groceries and let's get in the house, because they shooting.
And you can only imagine the terror and the feeling of someone not knowing what's going on. You're hearing gunshots. I also spoke to another neighbor off camera, and she spoke about knowing the person who she believes lives in that house. She believes it's a friend of her daughter who's a 12th grade student at a local school here. And she heard those gunshots as well, called the police immediately. And she's just concerned about whether or not that family is okay. If at the scene right now, you still have several residents standing around watching to see what's going to happen next. As we mentioned, it's pretty much calmed down. If you look down towards, this is Lewis Avenue. If we go 800 feet in, that's where that home was on fire. And that fire expanded to cars that were surrounding the home. So it was really a developing situation. But right now, from what we're seeing, some agencies have begun to leave the scene. We saw a SWAT truck leave the scene as well. And we see some firefighters as well walking out right now. They're leaving because the fire, we believe the fire is under control at the moment. But where we are on Baltimore Avenue, it is blocked off from Penn Boulevard down to Beverly Boulevard. So there's no traffic able to come in or out of this space at the moment. Yuki, Jessica.
Aziza, thank you so much. We will get back to you. Stand by. Once again, we continue to follow breaking news out of Delaware County. A call to the police about gunshots. Police responded. 2 officers were shot. They are in stable condition at the hospital. And according to the DA, just moments ago, the suspect set that home on fire and it burned for at least an hour. You're looking at live pictures right now from our chopper in the cover of darkness just about, as firefighters continue to douse any hot spots, douse the flames. White smoke is a good sign that that fire is just about under control. Many firefighters are using their flashlights right now to maybe search that home and also look for spots where they don't want to go in and find a weak spot and maybe endanger themselves. That's very important. So they're checking the integrity of that building where there is almost nothing, absolutely nothing left.
All right, and we have been monitoring this situation for the last 2 hours. Chief Investigative Reporter Joe Holden, you have had some very important insight. We are seeing some of those flames still flaring up. Joe, what can you tell us?
I was going to say, Jess and Yuki, great segue. Yuki, we're addressing the possibility of the structure being unstable, the house. We know that 3 floors have pancaked into one and is their basement. And the district attorney said in that audio clip that they would have to wait for officers to be able to go into the house. These are now arson investigators. I mentioned the ATF earlier, wondering if they'll be brought into this continuing investigation. But this place might not be safe. And there might be some time before not only the hot spots, but the entire building, the house might be compromised with the possibility of a basement. And so they're certainly not going to put themselves at any greater risk. They'll wait to determine that the structure is stable and that its integrity, or what's remaining of it, hasn't been compromised. A few other points that are worth passing on that we heard from the district attorney. We now know that those officers weren't there for warrant service or they weren't patrolling. They were responding, according to the district attorney and according to multiple sources in the county, for the reports of an 11-year-old possibly being shot. That was the first 911 call, that apparently a kid had been shot at that location. So the officers from East Lansdowne and Lansdowne, and you'd have to imagine from other departments, are now racing to this reported shooting of a child, and then they are met with gunfire coming from the house. The police officers engaged and were wounded, as we know all of this already, and the district attorney said very plainly the officers were running towards the fire while everyone was running the other direction, and that he said that he would be offering his prayers and support as he would speak with them in the emergency room. I know initial reports, we were working hard to pin down locations and transports. This is what happens in scenarios like this, where lots of sources are involved. Information is very valuable, but can also get a little distorted. We know that there was another hospital mentioned at the outset of this breaking news. I've received multiple messages of apology. I'm sorry, my information was not accurate.
That happens,
and that happens. But the sources, want their information to be judged as valuable. So we certainly do appreciate those who trust us to pass along what we've learned or what we're trying to piece together, and they help us out in doing so. But the district attorney with those big takeaways as to how this all started and got set into motion at 3:45 on this otherwise calm, sunny Wednesday afternoon.
And he's coming up shortly.
Yeah.
He's coming up shortly.
And we will take that sound from him as soon as he goes live with that information. But Joe, in a situation, we know as journalists how incredibly frustrating it is when there is a spread of misinformation. When it comes to these officers, their safety, and a scene like this is unfolding, how crucial is it for these departments to make sure that the correct information is being reported and that the DA has that information factual before he can go on camera and speak?
It's a dangerous job when you're running with information that is not accurate. It's flat out wrong. It's inverted, whatever the word to describe it might be. It's why there is all of this safety net in place to we're filtering, right? We're constantly filtering. And when I think about what set this into motion, let's talk about the elephant in the room. We're hearing that there was a call for a possible child shot. We don't know if that was an attempt to just bring police to a location. That right now for me is the possible elephant in the room, because it is the one detail that prosecutors are only addressing that's what brought them there. But
right.
We're not hearing an additional transport, and of course still we don't know the location of the shooter. We know the district attorney hinted that it's possible. It's a question that they'll ask it, or that they hope to get the answer to sooner than later. Is the shooter, did he remain inside and die as a result of the fire or something else? Perhaps we're able to return fire and subdue him. But these are all very, very early questions, and there's nothing unusual about this type of investigation where there are this volume of questions to be asked.
Joe, we appreciate you.
Yeah, and
as
Joe,
always.
just before you go, to reiterate what you just said, the 911 call, as we have found, or as was reported to CBS Philadelphia, was that report of a child shot. There still is no evidence that a child was shot, but those officers were shot immediately after arriving to that scene. So as you said, that could almost have been a baited call. That's why it's so important for us not to keep emphasizing what is not correct until we hear it from the DA himself.
And we want to remind everyone that those officers are in stable condition at the hospital. One officer was shot in the arm, the other in the leg, as this situation slowly starts to wind down. Joe, thanks so much. We'll get right back to you. If we can go back to that live shot of the scene at nighttime, it is now, about 8 minutes? Yeah, about 6 minutes before 6 o'clock. We saw the firefighters at both homes putting the flames out and putting the flames hot spots on the house next door that caught fire as well, and they're working their flashlights right now. Obviously it's tougher during the nighttime, but they're professionals. They know what they're doing.
Sure.
Let's go back out to the community right now and check in with our Kim Hudson with more information. Kim?
Yuki, we are still here on Penn Boulevard near Baltimore Avenue, and it looks like everyone has tried to go home. You heard a little earlier from a woman who said that she was trying to pick up her son when she first heard reports of a shooting here. She walked back up just a few moments ago and she said she lives nearby, but the traffic here is so bad that her car is just stuck on a nearby street. So again, if you are on your way here, if you're on your way home, give it a little bit of time. Hopefully things will start to clear out. The scene is a lot less chaotic than it was maybe about 30-45 minutes ago. So things are definitely starting to settle down, but you still have first responders on the scene. You still have streets blocked off. We still have heard no word of what's going on in the house. So right now we're going to continue to stay on this and bring more to you as soon as we can. Back to you.
Okay.
Kim, thank you so much.
And Kim, of course, talking with residents in the area, and so many questions tonight. We are working to get all of those answers for you. We are going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we will bring you the very latest from this scene at 6 o'clock.
Heart, hustle, home. CBS News, Philadelphia. Uncovering the heart behind the headline. CBS News, Philadelphia. We know this community by heart. CBS News, Philadelphia.
Breaking right now at 6 o'clock on CBS News Philadelphia. 2 police officers are shot and a house engulfed in flames in East Lansdowne, Delaware County. The scene near Lewis Avenue remains active at this hour. Law enforcement agencies, including SWAT, have flooded the area as firefighters continue to work to knock down those flames. Good evening, everyone. I'm Yuki Washington.
I'm Jessica Cartalia. This all began at 3:45 this afternoon when police responded to a report of multiple shots fired in the area. As of right now, we are still working to determine how that fire at that location started.
And we are told the 2 injured officers are expected to survive. That's the good news. We have crews at the scene on Lewis Avenue and at Penn Presbyterian Medical Center, where the injured officers are being treated right now. Let's begin with CBS News Philadelphia reporter Kim Hudson in East Lansdowne. Kim.
Yuki, we're right now on Penn Boulevard, and I want you to go ahead, take a look at Lewis right over here, just a block over. That's where this all started earlier this afternoon. We have a house there you may or may not be able to see in the dark just past this fire truck. That started to burn, and a lot of firefighters were being told to stay back because police were not sure exactly what was happening in that house. But at some point during the afternoon, we saw Police officers kick in the door of the house next door. That's because the fire spread. We watched that fire spread from one house to another. We interviewed 2 neighbors here, and they say that this is normally a safe and quiet neighborhood. They say that it is sad, and they are angry that this happened here because things like this just never do. Traffic here is a mess. We've seen family members, we've seen adults walking children home because they can't get down the street anymore. The entire area has several streets blocked off. We have yellow caution tape around parked cars. So if you need to get home in this area, strongly recommend that you give it just a little bit of time, because we are seeing that while we have several crews blocking off streets here, even the number of vehicles, emergency vehicles, even that number has gone down. So do whatever you can in order to just take some time, wait until you come home so that all of this can clear up. But right now, we do still have firefighters here on the scene from Lansdowne as well as Clifton Heights. We do still see one fire hose that still has water going through it. So we're not sure if they're trying to put out hot spots right now, but we do still have firefighters on the scene, and you can bet that these firefighters are going to be part of the investigation as to how all of this could happen in East Lansdowne. In East Lansdowne, Kim Hudson, CBS News, Philadelphia.
Yeah, it's going to be some time. Kim, thank you so much for that, and all afternoon. We appreciate you. Chief Investigative Reporter Joe Holden has been on the phone with his sources all afternoon. Yeah, Joe, what is the latest information that you're getting?
Well, Jessica, 2 hours and 15 minutes ago, all hell broke loose in East Lansdowne as 2 officers took fire as they approached 58 Lewis Avenue in East Lansdowne. We know, according to District Attorney Jack Stolzheimer, those officers were answering radio reports believing that there was an 11-year-old shot inside that house. Those officers went there and they were fired upon. Now, to put a fine point on what we know from prosecutors right now, the district attorney is saying that all he knows is that the officers were responding to a call suggesting that there was an 11-year-old shot inside that house. They don't have evidence that there was, in fact, an 11-year-old shot. They also don't have evidence that there wasn't. It's suggesting that it could have been a possible setup, his words. So very much unclear right now what actually happened inside that home preceding the officers being shot. We know that they were raced to Penn Presbyterian Hospital, where they are being treated, according to the district attorney, for non-life-threatening gunshot wounds. We also know, as that fire burned out of control for a good 90 minutes, officers were still operating in a defensive mode, as if, as they would say, this barricade situation was still in full effect and still unfolding. The DA telling us that at some point the officers hope to make entry. That will be the next step in the investigation as they begin to collect evidence inside this charred out rubble of a story home.
Joe, we're going to get back to you shortly, but right now I understand the DA is coming out to speak more about the situation. You're looking at him live right now as he gets set to explain what has happened since 3:45 this afternoon.
Might be helpful.
Here's the District Attorney Jack Stolzheimer with a number of officials behind him as they get set to let the public and the media know what exactly happened as far as his knowledge this afternoon.
And his 2 officers behind him being treated at Penn Presbyterian Hospital. Let's go ahead and listen in.
Thank you, everybody. Sorry.
No worries.
Go ahead, where were you?
Good evening. My name is Jack Stolzheimer. I'm the District Attorney of Delaware County. I'm joined here today by the police chiefs from Lansdowne, East Lansdowne, the superintendent of the Upper Darby Police Department, and the mayors of Lansdowne and East Lansdowne to talk about the tragic but heroic situation that took place this afternoon. At about 3:47 this afternoon, a call went out from our 911 center that an 11-year-old girl had been shot on a property at 58 Lewis Street in East Lansdowne Borough. Police officers from Upper Darby, Lansdowne, and East Lansdowne immediately responded to that call, and braving the danger, they ran up towards danger so that the rest of us can run away from it. They were immediately met by gunfire. and 2 officers have been struck, one from Lansdowne, one from East Lansdowne. They are both doing okay. I just visited with their family, as we all did. They are being taken care of in great care here at the hospital. We expect them to be perfectly fine, but they have been through a trauma. And it was because of the Upper Darby Police Department, who also responded to that call, that these officers are alive today. They were dragged out of danger by Upper Darby police officers. Everybody in law enforcement in Delaware County works together. And we just had a tremendous showing of all of our mutual aid. All of our departments were on scene, some are still on scene, and East Lansdowne dealing with the aftermath of this. As you know, the house was then set on fire. We don't know who the occupants are. We don't know who the shooter was at this point. We don't know how many people are in there or even if they're even still alive. Our compatriots and our colleagues are on scene dealing with that right now. But we are happy to tell people in Delaware County right now that keep praying for these officers and their family, but they're doing well. They're going to be okay. Thank God for that. And I just can't thank these officers and this team enough for the heroism displayed every single day by our police officers throughout the county, but particularly today. I can't thank Upper Darby police officers enough for what they did to drag these 2 gentlemen away from the gunfire, or we might be having a whole different conversation tonight about what happened.
Any validity to the initial report?
We have no idea. Let me just say right now, we are still actively investigating the scene. We don't know who was in the house. We don't know who the shooter was. We don't know how many people are in there. We don't know their status. We don't know if they're alive. Police officers right now are making sure that that scene is secure. The gunfire has stopped. I just left that scene. Some of us, the chiefs, did as well. The house was still on fire, so we weren't able to make entry yet into the house because we're taking it safely for all of the officers on scene. But we will get to the bottom of it, and we will continue that investigation to know whether or not an 11-year-old girl was or was not shot, and more importantly, who shot these police officers, and we intend to hold everyone accountable.
Jack, can you explain to the people who are watching this on TV and wondering why you weren't putting out the fire? Just explain to the neighbors and everything why you weren't putting out that fire.
Sure, because officers were taking gunfire. The police officers and the fire department who were out there were still shots coming out at the beginning of this fire scene. So we want to make sure, and some of our police chiefs are out there right now. Some of our police chiefs in Delaware County are also fire chiefs. Okay, so they're out there actively controlling that scene. But there is nobody else in danger. We've made sure that the entire block has been emptied of people, and that fire is now mostly under control. But again, we're not going to go make entry into that house until we know that the fire is under control and that it's safe for those officers to go in there. We don't want another single officer hurt tonight in Delaware County.
Jack, can you give us about how the Upper Darby officers, they get on scene, and can you explain more about how they were dragging the lady? Like, how did that all play out?
I'm going to answer that question. In fact, I'm going to let Superintendent Bernhardt answer that question. But Annie, I can't tell you the exact details of their injuries right now. Their families are with them. I want to protect their privacy at this point. I don't want to tell you the officers' names or their injuries. They are not life-threatening injuries. Both officers are going to be fine, God willing, but they are doing okay, and they're here getting great treatment.
But they weren't both shot. They were
both shot.
Okay. And once each?
One each. Okay. Yeah, one wound each.
And both males?
Yes, male police officers.
Can you tell us how long they've been with the departments for?
Chief?
Mine's 22 years.
Veteran police officers, 22 years. The officer from East Lansdowne, 22 from Lansdowne.
And how many officers are in your? You have a small department, right?
We don't want to take a lot. They're not going to take a lot of questions. They're going to go back inside and talk to the family. But I do want to have Superintendent Bernhardt, because I think this is a very important. I think people need to know how heroic our police officers are, not just responding to a call, but taking care of each other. And would you mind?
Absolutely, Jack. Yes. So like the district attorney said today, that call went out for shots fired in the borough of East Lansdowne. The borough of East Lansdowne borders Upper Darby Township, and we work well with them and work with them daily. When that call went out, our officers automatically responded to that scene on the uniblock of Lewis Avenue. Our uniform patrol responded and saw 2 officers, and they advised our officers that they had been shot. Our officers, numerous officers responded, got ballistic shields, and were able to go onto that street, drag those officers out. One of those officers was transported here by one of our marked police cars. The other uniform officers from Upper Darby were able to drag the other officer to a waiting ambulance and was driven here as well.
Tim, were your officers taking fire too when they were dragging those officers?
All officers that were on scene initially were taking on fire, and then when they removed themselves from it, there was no more gunfire at that point.
We're now going to go back inside. These guys have to go deal with the situation that is still unfolding in East Lansdowne. I appreciate you all being here. We want you to know that these officers are doing well. We ask for the continued prayers for them and their family. They have to recover from this trauma. But thank you for taking the time tonight. We're going to go back inside and continue dealing with the ongoing problem. Thank you.
You have been listening to Delco DA Jack Stolzheimer informing the public about the chaotic situation in Delco today, calling it a tragic yet heroic situation as officers from all over the area responded, dragging their fellow officers to safety after taking on gunshots from this home in Delco.
Right. A call initially came in that an 11-year-old had been shot. Those two officers from Lansdowne, East Lansdowne and Lansdowne police departments ran into the scene. That's when they were shot. It was when Upper Darby police then responded to the scene that they pulled those officers to safety. We have also just learned, which is new information coming into our newsroom, per the DA, that shots were still being fired when that suspect set the home on fire. So that is why fire crews were not allowed to get closer to the home and try to put that fire out.
There are still questions about the shooter. We are looking for answers to those questions as well. Eyewitness News and CBS 3 Philadelphia continues after a short break. We'll be right back.
CBS News Philadelphia. Uncovering the heart behind the headline. CBS News Philadelphia. We know this community by heart. CBS News Philadelphia. Heart, hustle, home. CBS News Philadelphia.
And our coverage continues from Delco. A chaotic active shooter situation looks to be drawing to a close, but it is still a very active situation.
Yeah, we're going to go now to Philadelphia reporter Aziza Schuler, who's been live near the scene. So Aziza, all of this new information just coming in from the DA. What can you tell us from where you are?
Well, Well, Jessica and Yuki, as the DA mentioned, that was a tremendous effort of Delaware County officials coming together to respond to this scene. As you can see now, things have essentially cleared out, but we still have Darby Fire Department here. There was Sharon Hill, there was Upper Darby, Lansdowne, and several others who all basically congested this part of Baltimore Avenue right up against Lewis Avenue. It was blocked off from down at Penn Boulevard to about Beverly Boulevard. And at the moment, things have cleared up. They've opened up traffic, and even residents can get to their homes if they live on Lewis Avenue. Residents have been cleared to move in, so we can only assume that the scene is safe or is winding down at this point. But I want to give you a look at what it looked like when we got here around 3:30 to about 4 o'clock. If you can see from where we were, we had a vantage point from a balcony of a home on a neighboring street, and you can see just how damaged that home was. It was engulfed in flames, blackened to its core, really. It had expanded to another home next door, as well as some cars in that vicinity. And neighbors who live on Lewis Avenue at that point could not leave. They were told to shelter in place. A woman that we spoke to as she was finally cleared to leave that street told us she heard the barrage of gunshots as she was dropping off groceries to a friend of hers. Take a listen.
And then the next thing we heard, pop, 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 pop. No cops had got here. I seen when the cops first started running up with their guns out. I said, girl, leave them groceries and let's get in the house, because they shooting.
And if you hear what she said, she heard the gunshots, and then she saw the cops running with guns toward that location of that home on Lewis Avenue. So if you put the pieces together from what the DA was saying, was that the officers ran to the home, and that was before the home caught on fire. And then once the house went up in flames, the fire department could not get close enough to begin to extinguish the fire. So at this point, it looks like the fire may be contained. One fire truck, as we see, the Darby Fire Company is moving in, but most of the fire crews have already exited this street, and many residents have cleared out as well. We have a few people standing by waiting to move their cars, but the scene is fairly quiet at this point.
Okay, Aziza, thank you so much for that. And as you can see, officials are now operating under the cover of darkness as night has fallen in the tri-state area, but our coverage continues. Yeah, CBS News Philadelphia reporter Carrie Corrado is at Penn Presbyterian Hospitals where those officers are being treated. And Carrie, the DA was very adamant at talking about how they ran into the home, they ran toward the danger, and thanks to the teamwork from the Upper Darby police officers, thank goodness they arrived at the scene to get them out of there.
Absolutely, Jessica. And he also said that they are okay. So a sense of relief tonight knowing they are recovering inside Penn Presbyterian Medical Center. I want to show you kind of the scene right now. And we are across the street and we can see a heavy police presence everywhere. Everywhere you look, there is a police cruiser. We're seeing support from all over with multiple departments. We can also see a lot of officers waiting out front of the front door. Many of them, this hits home. It started off as a normal day and then it quickly took a turn. We could also see what appears to be family arrive, family of the police officers who are recovering inside of the hospital. And when it comes to those two police officers who were shot, we are told one officer is from Lansdowne, the other officer is from East Lansdowne. We learned that they are in stable condition and being taken care of and have been through a trauma, as you can imagine. The Delaware County District Attorney says Upper Darby police officers actually dragged them to safety after they were shot. They used shields to get the officers, and one officer was put into a police car. The other was put into an ambulance to get them to the hospital as quickly as possible. Both officers, we are told, are veteran police officers. They've been on the force for a while. The DA says just to keep praying for those officers, but again, they are doing well. We are told there will be another press conference later tonight, so a lot is developing, but most importantly, the DA says those officers are recovering inside the hospital. Send it back to you.
And we will be following it all. Carrie Corrado, thank you so much. CBS News Philadelphia continues after a short break.
heart, hustle, home. CBS News, Philadelphia. Uncovering the heart behind the headline. CBS News, Philadelphia. We know this community by heart. CBS News, Philadelphia.
Thank you for staying with us, everyone. Our coverage continues of today's danger in Delco. Chief investigative reporter Joe Holden has been on the phone with his sources all afternoon.
Yeah, and Joe, very telling what the DA had to say. What is the latest that you're hearing from your police sources?
Well, I'll tell you, it is what the district attorney avoided saying, or that he didn't want to take questions about this investigation. They simply and clearly do not know much about, because they cannot get into that house. We know the information laid out by Aziza Schuler and Kim Hudson and Carrie Corrado. Some information I'm now getting from police sources is the videos they watched transmitted from Chopper 3 and into their homes or on their phones showed members of law enforcement they know and work with coming under fire under SWAT officers' shields trying to run fire hoses. There's the chief of the Radnor Police Department, Chris Flanagan, who is also a firefighter himself. He was unwrapping fire hose, trying to line things up when it would be safe enough to get closer to the house. And there's video that we're shuttling through to actually see this veteran police chief and a firefighter being protected by a SWAT officer's shield. That is how intense not only the situation for police in trying to keep the gunfire at bay and to not come under more attack and more gunfire, but also dealing with a tremendous and out of control fire that burned for hours in that home. The anecdotal characterization that, we hear that a lot. The district attorney was very forceful in his description of the Upper Darby police officers not only dragging those wounded officers out of the line of danger, but also now more stories unfolding as people are looking at the video and saying, hey, I know that guy. He's my chief. He's also unrolling fire hose. Oh, and look, and SWAT is covering him so he can do his job and prevent possibly the neighborhood going up in flames. Quite an emergency situation, dangerous for police and every other soul in that area, starting at 3:45 this afternoon.
Joe, thank you so much for your reporting. Just incredible. And thank you to all of the first responders. It really takes a special type of person to be a police chief, a volunteer firefighter. We appreciate all that you do for us. Thank you, first responders.
Continued blessings. We're going to be right back.
Heart, hustle, home. CBS News, Philadelphia. Uncovering the heart behind the headline. CBS News, Philadelphia. We know this community by heart. CBS News, Philadelphia.
Here's what's been happening. We continue to follow breaking news. 2 police officers shot in East Lansdowne. Give you a quick recap. The officers responded to reports of an 11-year-old girl shot at a house on Lewis Avenue around 3:45. The house was on fire. According to the DA, the suspect set the house on fire. The district attorney also says 1 officer was shot in the leg and 1 was hit in the arm. Others were there to drag them from danger. Both officers are at Penn Presby Hospital in stable condition, and we are told they're going to be okay.
We are going to take a live look now at the smoldering remains of the house. Of course, we are going to stay on top of this story. We have crews out on the scene as well. The DA says they still do not know who the suspect is. We're going to take a quick break.